Football is a beautiful game, filled with moments of glory, unforgettable goals, and records that players and fans celebrate for years. But there's another side to the sport, those unfortunate cringe-worthy records that no one would ever want to be associated with. These are the records that players, coaches, and sometimes entire teams wish they could forget. Today we're diving into some of football's most embarrassing moments, the ones that have players cringing, managers sighing, and fans shaking their heads. Whether it's bizarre red cards, unfortunate streaks, or disastrous seasons, these stories are as unforgettable as they are hilarious. Let's start with a moment that has to be one of the most bizarre in Premier League history. Keith Gillespie, during a match between Sheffield United and Reading, somehow managed to earn the fastest red card ever recorded in football history. Substituted into the game, Gillespie didn't even have time to touch the ball before making a complete mess of things. He elbowed Stephen Hunt in the face, not once, but twice, before the play even resumed. The referee unsurprisingly showed him a straight red card. And just like that, Gillespie's Premier League career took a turn for the worse. Talk about a way to make an impact on your debut. It must have been a painful walk back to the dugout, and no doubt he spent a lot of time replaying that embarrassing moment in his head. But if you think that was bad, it gets worse. Gerardo Bedoya, known as the Beast for his aggressive playing style, holds the record for the most red cards ever received in football. 46 in total. Yes, 46. Bedoya's career was marked by brutal tackling and reckless challenges that seemed to infuriate opponents and referees alike. His most infamous moment came in a 2012 Bogota derby, when he elbowed Johnny Ramirez and followed it up with a kick to the head. He was given a 15-match suspension for the incident, but that didn't seem to slow him down. After retiring as a player, he became an assistant coach, but not for long. He was sent off just 21 minutes into his first game on the sidelines. Some habits die hard, it seems. Now, not all embarrassing records are about red cards. Joe Sheerin holds the title for the shortest Premier League career, and his story is just as bizarre as it is heartbreaking. Sheerin made his one and only Premier League appearance for Chelsea as a substitute for Gianfranco Zola in the 90th minute of a match. The whistle blew almost as soon as he stepped on the pitch, and just like that, his career was over. Imagine working for years to get that moment only for it to last less than a minute. But it gets worse. After that fleeting appearance, Sheerin found himself competing against 500 other players for a contract. That's got to be one of the most painful career starts in football. Speaking of records that are hard to fathom, imagine a single football match with 36 red cards. Sounds like something from a movie, right? But it actually happened in 2012, during a Primera D match in Argentina between Club Atletico Claypole and Victoriano Arenas. A massive brawl broke out, and the referee, clearly fed up with the chaos, showed red cards to all 22 players on the pitch, plus the substitutes and coaches. That's 36 red cards in one match. It's one of the most absurd things you'll ever hear about in football, and the game was eventually abandoned. It's hard to imagine what that match report looked like. Imagine the referee just writing everyone and moving on. This bizarre incident has earned a place in football's history books, and it's a reminder that sometimes football can be more chaotic than sport. While some players have to endure embarrassing records, others find themselves stuck in a winless streak. Rudy Gestede holds the unfortunate record for the longest winless streak in Premier League history. Over 32 consecutive games, Gestede failed to win a single match, with 31 of those games at Aston Villa and 1 at Middlesbrough. Week after week he stepped onto the pitch, probably hoping this would be the game things turned around. Unfortunately, it never did. For any player, that kind of streak would be incredibly tough mentally, and it's a record that no doubt haunted Gestede throughout his career. But it also shows his determination to keep fighting for his teams despite the odds stacked against him. Defenders often get little credit for their hard work, but sometimes they're the ones who create the most embarrassing records. Richard Dunn unfortunately holds the record for the most own goals in Premier League history. 10 own goals to be exact. Imagine the pressure of scoring that many own goals over a career, each one putting your team at a disadvantage. It's enough to break any defender's confidence. And if that wasn't bad enough, Dunn also shares the record for the most red cards in Premier League history, alongside Patrick Vieira and Duncan Ferguson. having been sent off 8 times. Dunn's career was filled with these mishaps, but he was still a talented defender. Another record that defenders dread is giving away penalties, and David Luiz has set the bar here. The Brazilian centre-back gave away 5 penalties in a single Premier League season, a record that's both puzzling and frustrating. Whether it was a reckless tackle or a mistimed challenge, Luiz's fiery playing style often got the better of him, and opponents were quick to capitalise. Penalties are already difficult to deal with, but giving away 5 in one season, that's a record no player wants to claim. Luiz is a player who thrives on passion, but sometimes that passion leads to costly mistakes. Teams are also no strangers to embarrassing records. Take Norwich City for example. They hold the record for the most Premier League relegations, with 6 since the league's inception in 1992. To make matters worse, every time they've been promoted to the Premier League in the last 3 decades, they've been relegated again in their first season back. It's a frustrating cycle for fans, as the team can't seem to stay in the top flight for long. But on the other hand, Norwich also holds the joint record for the most promotions to the Premier League, showing that they managed to bounce back from relegation time and time again. While their relegation record is painful, it also proves that they have the ability to rise again, even if they can't stay up for long. Sunderland too holds an unfortunate record, the most days spent at the bottom of the Premier League table. The club has spent over 1,200 days at the foot of the standings, making them a poster child for relegation struggles. For their fans, this record is a constant reminder of the club's battles to stay afloat in the top flight. Sunderland has had its fair share of ups and downs, but it's a harsh reality that they spent more time at the bottom than they'd like to admit. The team has faced countless challenges, but they continue to fight for a better future, hoping that one day they'll break free from their relegation struggles. Then there's Derby County, whose 2007-2008 season still stands as one of the worst in Premier League history. The team won just 1 game out of 38, setting a record for the worst Premier League season ever. To make things even worse, they went 32 games without a win, which is still the longest winless streak in league history. It was a tough season for Derby County, who found themselves completely out of their depth in the Premier League. The team struggled to keep up with the competition, and was eventually relegated in what many still consider the most painful season in Premier League history. Home and away records are no different when it comes to embarrassment. Watford holds the record for the most home defeats in a Premier League season, losing 15 out of their 19 home games in the 2021-2022 season. And Burnley set the record for the most away defeats, losing 17 out of 19 away matches in the 2009-2010 season. These records show how difficult it can be for teams to get a foothold in the league, whether at home or on the road. For these clubs, nothing seemed to go right, and their fans were left to watch as the defeats piled up week after week. Finally, there's the most bizarre football match of all time. In 2002, AS Adema defeated Stade Olympique L'Emerne 149-0 in Madagascar's National Football Championship. But this wasn't a record set by sheer footballing excellence, it was a protest. Stade Olympique players, angry at referee decisions, decided to repeatedly score their own goals, resulting in one of the most absurd scorelines in football history. The game ended with a result that no one could have predicted, and the aftermath saw fines and suspensions handed out. It's a record that's unlikely to be broken, and is a strange chapter in football's long and colourful history. Football is a game of highs and lows, and while these records may seem embarrassing, they are a reminder of the unpredictability and sometimes hilarious nature of the sport. For the players and teams involved, these moments might be ones they wish to forget, but for fans, they add a colourful chapter to football's rich history. After all, even in the face of humiliation, these records prove one thing: football never stops surprising us.